few months back, some very talented people came together and gave the Monster Hunter community a fantastic gift, the return of Lock-Lack, the online portion of Monster Hunter Tri, thanks to private servers they have been slaving away at. Unfortunately at present the multiplayer is not functional, but if you want to brave it all in solo mode, it's right there for the taking. There's only one problem. High rank is blocked behind the Jhen Mohran Urgent, which was designed for a full party, and for a solo player is quite difficult. It has been done before though, by a decent number of people. Flyann did an excellent video about his attempts and eventual success to repel the monster, and recently another member of the community did something even more impressive, but more on that later. So I thought, hey, I'm a Hammer main. Hammers are pretty fucking strong. I bet I could get past this with Hammer. I've done all the EXs solo in GU and I love a challenge. I bet I can get this cleared in a week. Yeah, I didn't manage to do it, and I might be able to one day, but currently I'm worn out from my attempts. This video is going to chronicle everything I did, from planning to execution to my eventual resignation from this challenge. I want to showcase why I still think it's very much doable, and that will be explained why at the end, but fair warning, this video will be filled with a lot of very in-depth mechanics about Monster Hunter Tri, which obviously isn't going to interest some people. But I hope to others who aren't familiar with what's under the hood of a Monster Hunter game, this will give you a greater appreciation for other, better players doing crazy run in any game from this series. So my starting point to devise a strategy was Flyann's method, seeing him use the Tusk Lance Plus in his mix set. The Tusk Lance Plus has decent raw, sharpness and ice element, but this isn't objectively the best lance. The Undertaker, for instance, uses only low rank materials and has 368 damage, compared to Tusk Lance Plus's 322. Technically 354 when you factor in damage addition from Affinity, and it has more natural green sharpness. Its elemental damage is only 250 Dragon, whereas Tusk Lance Plus has 310 Ice, with Ice being slightly more effective against him on certain parts. If you have a look at the maths on screen though, the Undertaker does do more damage overall. I was confident I could find a hammer that, after comparing the true damage values about weapon class modifiers, dealt a fair bit more damage than Tusk Lance Plus. As I was doing this research looking at this, I saw another video by Noir. He was the first person confirmed to beat the Jhen Mohran without using the Hellhunter jacket, which provides the skill Fortify. Only Adrenaline +2, and with Greatsword this time instead of Lance. He was able to do this by exploiting a design flaw in Jhen Mohran's hitboxes. The two back sections are very weak, taking 78% of your weapon's damage. Once broken, the rest of Jhen Mohran's spine takes only 21% of your weapon's damage. Or at least it would, had there not been a leftover 78% hitbox at the very top of the now created archway in his back. No other weapon can consistently hit this spot repeatedly, except Greatsword. But I started to wonder, are there other leftover hitboxes that could be exploited by the hammer and haven't been found yet? The answer is no. This would be a completely different video if I had found any. If there are, I don't think I'll ever find them. But armed with this possibility at the time, I decided to outfit my setup a little bit differently. But back to the hammer choice for now. There were two serious contenders, the Crimson Clout on the Uragain line or the Breathcore Hammer on the Rusted Weapon line. At first the clear choice was the Crimson Clout, as the raw offset is massive between the two. However, at yellow sharpness or below, there's a chance your attack will only do 40% of its intended damage. I couldn't find any sources that say how often this occurs, but this was essentially a negative affinity for a weapon, on top of a weapon with no green at all, meaning no 1.05 times damage multiplier. Not to mention the yellow is so small to start with, that it'd be constantly sharpening the whole hunt. The Breathcore Hammer on the other hand had a healthy green sharpness, still decent raw, and some much welcome dragon element to boot. The obvious choice then was the Breathcore Hammer, so I just had to farm rust stones from the volcano to get it. Easy. Words cannot describe the sheer pain and agony of this grind that added an additional 30 hours to my save file just for one hammer. The layers of RNG built into RNG for you to get this fucking hammer is beyond maddening, and I could feel my soul slipping into the void once I tossed 3 copies of every other rusted weapon. No sign of salvation. Then I got it. Perfect. That's one piece of the puzzle. The second piece was the armor itself. I already had full Rathalos, which gave me attack up M and critical eye. When I added some gems and a lucky find and a crit eye +6 talisman, I had attack up L and crit I +2. But this was Jhen Mohran, I wasn't going to attempt it with a slightly buff normal set. Wrong. I was, because earlier I mentioned how Noir beat the Jhen Mohran with only Adrenaline +2 as the main multiplier skill. I obviously couldn't stick Adrenaline +2 on this set, but I could eat for Feline Heroics.
Delicious. Finally. Some good fucking food.
Quick breakdown. Adrenaline +2 activates when health is below 40% and gives you a 1.3 times multiplier to your attack power. Feline Heroics kicks in when health is below 10 hit points and gives you a 1.35 times multiplier to attack power. Jhen Mohran is a slow, predictable monster with a pretty on-rails fight for the most part. I knew once I learned the fight I could avoid Jhen's damage altogether, and if I did slip up I had 2 more feints thanks to not needing to use Fortify. Just for clarification, Fortify is a skill that boosts your attack by 1.2 times after 2 feints. I couldn't use both Adrenaline and Heroic skills simultaneously because they don't stack, only one can activate at a time, whereas Adrenaline/Heroics does stack with Fortify. So instead of Adrenaline +2 and Fortify combined for a whopping 1.56 times damage multiplier, I opted for the 1.35 times damage multiplier with far less room for error. This multiplier difference is why Noir's repel with only Adrenaline +2 was so impressive, and why the backspine exploit was essential to its success. Why did I decide to emulate this? Well, firstly, pure stubborn belief in my abilities to do it without the Fortify, but also to prove something to myself. The Fortify skill can only be attained at low rank by equipping the Soul Hunter jacket, made from ticket items from a low rank event quest. The server currently doesn't support event quests, so I wanted to see if it could be done without needing to sneakily add that item back in the market vendor through a config file in the server. I wanted to see if you could beat Jhen Mohran without needing to do an event quest. Noir had proved that for Greatsword. I wanted to prove it for Hammer. So armed with all of this and a ton of damage boosting items, when it's all put together, my maximum attack power was 1,532, as well as a light spattering of dragon element for flavour. I began my attempts. Each run consisted of sitting down to eat, praying to Jesus Heroics was on the skill list, praying again that it would activate, and then departing on the quest. The first dozen or so runs were practice, followed by another 4 dozen or so runs which were more deliberate, unintended lessons on what not to do and where to stand. I finally learnt the fight enough to survive a full run, and once the timer hit 30 minutes, time's up, failure. But that's fine. There were areas of improvement to be made, so I kept at it. Each time I was also looking for the magic spot where the hitbox might still be left behind to inflict that massive 78% weapon damage on Jhen. But the more I looked, the more I felt there wasn't going to be another massive exploit that would make the run miraculously work, and I kept failing the quest to either getting hit or timing out without doing enough damage. A while passed with me attempting every now and then, but ultimately getting on with the rest of my life. But Noir came back, out of the blue, with something truly phenomenal. He managed to solo kill Jhen Mohran with only low rank equipment in the urgent quest. My mind was absolutely blown. You absolutely need to check this out, as it is, in my opinion, the single greatest Monster Hunter Challenge run I've seen to date. This gave me an explosion of enthusiasm. He can kill it with time left on the clock. Surely I can repel him with my setup. I got back to it, grinding attempt after attempt until I got that one perfect run, only to be met with a time's up. This finally convinced me that my approach was nothing but arrogant delusion.
I will need a high raw, decent green sharpness hammer with Feline Heroics, and if you feel that isn't enough damage output, then I am content to use the triple Dragonator strat.
Sheer fucking hubris.
I've come to the conclusion that the only reason Noir was able to repel it with Adrenaline +2 was because of that hitbox exploit. Without a similar one for Hammer to consistently capitalise on, Hammer cannot repel Jhen Mohran even with the slight damage increase of Heroics. I firmly believe it isn't possible without some truly godlike strategy in gameplay, and I doubt it'll ever be done. Anyway, I decided that I needed to go full meta. I crafted the same mix set Flyann used, copied the best parts of Flyann's and Noir's runs, and got back out there. Fortify meant I no longer had a buffer in the form of feints, but going from 5% to 40% allowed health was a huge weight off my attempts. No more worrying about Delics biting my ankles or ruining a decent run. I still failed though, repeatedly. After 5 or 6 failed attempts, I incorporated bombs into the run. I prioritised ballista more than the hammer for fixed damage at certain parts of the hunt. I pushed myself to what I felt was my genuine limit of my abilities and did a truly almost flawless run. Unfortunately, this one time my computer decided not to record the footage, but it still wasn't enough. I failed to repel him. So does that mean that Jhen Mohran can't be repelled with hammer? Absolutely not. I know there are things that could be done further. A Fortify Heroics run, like Noir did, was increase my maximum attack by approximately 54, but that leaves you with 5% health and no feints to fall back on. I knew that I'd be playing way too cautiously to actually capitalise on the extra damage boost. The fundamental combat of the hammer is also an interesting skill hurdle to cross. When you do a 1-2 swing combo, the motion values of the attack, which for anyone who doesn't know are the multipliers applied to the raw for that specific attack, are 52%, 20%, and 65%, for a total of 137% damage before other multipliers each combo, provided you land all 3 hits. Greatsword, on the other hand, outputs 110% damage on top of a 1.3 times damage multiplier for a single level 3 charge. That's equivalent to roughly 143% damage from a single level 3 Greatsword charge. That's not much difference, and a level 3 will take the same amount of time as a 1-2 swing combo for the hammer. For a monster like Jhen Mohran though, with big static targets for the first half of the hunt and much of the second, it is a dream come true for a Greatsword player. For hammer, yeah, it's still good, but the different attack arcs on the 1-2 and the swing mean there's a lot more finesse and awkwardness in where you need to position yourself to land everything consistently. But with sufficient skill from a better player than me, this would probably be a non-issue. The Monster Hunter community is filled with far better players than me, players who can do things with these games I could only dream of. So I'm putting it out to you, to the whole Monster Hunter community, to anyone who wants to try this. Beat Jhen Mohran in Monster Hunter Tri with the hammer, solo, using only low rank equipment. I know it can be done, probably in a week from this video going up if the right person watches it. And when one of you does it and puts that run up for the world to see, I will be cheering you on and then shamelessly copying every move you make. I look forward to it.